College sports have always been a large part of American life and how they bring entertainment and competition between schools, which also brings their communities closer together. However, the athletes who bring the most attention are often those who struggle the most financially. For years now, there's been controversy on the ideas behind paying college athletes within the U.S., which has often been split in half or nearly there, with one side led by Mark Emmert, the CEO of the NCAA. However, a California bill, SB 206, was recently passed which allows student athletes to be paid for their likeness or image, which has also been quite controversial. Many believe that the NCAA has experience in college athletics and knows what courses of action to take for their student athletes. This belief also implies that the Fair Pay to Play Act would go against the NCAA, which knows best for the players. Shown on screen is the original logo of the NCAA, which was made in 1906 when it was first founded. This proves the age of the NCAA being over 100 years old and still running college sports to this day. Seeing as the organization has been running for this long, they must be leading fairly unequally, meaning that Mark Emmert knows how to lead college sports. The graph above shows a giant leap in graduation rates for student athletes since 2001. This was the year that the NCAA implemented and put into use the APP, aka the Academic Performance Program. It's evidence that shows that ever since the NCAA's creation, the livelihoods of student athletes have risen and the NCAA is capable of handling their athletes without harming their academics at the same time. However, this is all just controversial. Although people believe this, the NCAA is actually just a private entity which leads based on business point of view. This biases all of Emmert's actions and his beliefs towards his company and more income for them. The graph above shows how much the NCAA makes every year due to their business standpoint. 73% of the NCAA's entire income is made from their football and men's basketball teams, which are also the teams with athletes who typically struggle the most in California and are usually under the poverty line. Another graph shows that the NCAA is making more revenue from sports ads than any other major sports company. In this regard, the NCAA holds their athletes to a higher regard than professionals and trains them to the same extent, but with no reward like the professionals get. Basketball players especially become stressed and worked out during March Madness, which is when the NCAA makes 96% of its yearly ad revenue, and they just make profits. This image shows how much of an NCAA football coach is really paid. It amounts to millions, showing that the NCAA treats everyone involved in their teams as business partners, except for the athletes themselves who go home penniless. In that regard, the NCAA is run as a business, just one that the athletes aren't a part of. Those with similar beliefs to Emmert also believe that the bill would confuse many athletes and create a less appealing competition. This statement from the NCAA explains their thought on the bill and how it's already begun to create confusion. It's reasonable, as athletes and viewers would be confused because this bill could definitely change how student athletes play forever. An ESPN survey actually proved that a slight majority of the US believed that college football players shouldn't be paid. However, one thing to keep in mind is that the survey offered to pay the athletes directly from the school, which isn't what SB 206 is doing. On the other hand, this bill only lets athletes sell their image and likeness, which doesn't force schools to pay them as employees. These previous beliefs state that the bill would confuse athletes, but the only reason bills like this need to be fought for is because of Emmert and the NCAA's unreasonable restrictions. Shown above is Donald Delahaye, who was a popular college football player who enjoyed vlogging about being a student athlete. He did so on YouTube and monetized his videos as well, to make some ad revenue. Sadly, the NCAA recently gave him an ultimatum, letting him either stop monetizing his videos or have to quit the NCAA. The ads that he used didn't showcase him or his sports at all, but were just football related. Believing that they had no right to stop him from monetizing his videos and creating revenue, he quit the NCAA.
Upload regularly to this channel, not stopping that. I'm not demonetizing. I refuse to. So yeah, it's out of my hands now. The decision is in the NCAA's hands, whether they want to suspend me or whether they want to let me do me.
Another similar restriction was actually placed on Kyle Guy, who was one of the athletes whose issue began the fight for SB 206. During an interview, Guy talks about how the NCAA forced him to privatize his wedding registry or quit the NCAA during the national championships. Not willing to risk the national championships, he obliged. Many believe that the NCAA had no right restricting a player's wedding registry as it had nothing to do with the organization and was a private event. A large reason people are still against the bill is because college athletes already get many scholarships and grants, which they believe is enough of a payment. Also, not all college football and basketball players are under the poverty line, leading to the belief that they don't need the bill to survive. This partial shot of the UC Berkeley men's basketball team showcases several international students, meaning that they don't struggle financially, as being an international student is an expensive task and isn't actually afforded by most people. To add on to that claim, the NCAA gives out $30,000 to $50,000 in scholarships per school. It shows how college athletes are typically given scholarships from the NCAA, which doesn't even include any financial aid or other scholarships they may receive. Taken from the official NCAA website, this image shows how many college athletes are given scholarships based on their division. California has a higher poverty line than most, and around 59 to 80% of student athletes are given scholarships already. Once more, this doesn't even include the financial aid or other scholarships they may receive with it. Even though college athletes are given lots of scholarships, majority of those athletes still live either on or below the poverty line. This forces them to try and find a source of income, but it's a lot harder trying to find a job when you spend daily hours training and practicing for a sport. Basketball and football players are usually the least financially stable, and this chart shows just how low they are in the poverty line. It proves the insane amount of athletes under the poverty line who need this bill in order to start earning income. Even though they're only under the poverty line by $3,000 to $5,000, it's a big gap, especially in California. These two pie charts were made to help visualize the student schedule. An athlete's time to work is replaced by their time on sports, leaving them with little to no time to work a part-time job without sacrificing any of their sleep or academic time. These charts are the average student's schedule, so although some athletes can get jobs, it is very rare. Mark Emmert heavily voices his opinions, and explained previously that this bill would only confuse the athletes. Surprisingly, he's not the only person who believes this, as people are speaking out on Twitter now. This user talks about how college sports would be ruined by the bill, since the best recruits would move to California for more financial opportunities. He also talks about how competition would practically be ruined if most of the players went to California, since that's where all the best recruits would end up. Another tweet shows the same view and thinks that the NCAA is meant for amateur sports. By this, they talk about how SB 206 would kill the idea of amateurism and turn all these college athletes into more like professional athletes. As seen on Twitter, there were many people voicing their concerns, but there were even more voicing their approval. One of the biggest supporters of the bill was LeBron James, who went as far as having the bill signed by Governor Newsom on his talk show, The Shop.
This is the number one reason why we've created this platform. To be able to have moments like this where we got the governor of California signing a bill to allow athletes in college.
Let's do it, man. All right.
LeBron James believes that the bill creates new opportunities for student athletes and wants it intact for when his son enters college as well, as he's a basketball prospect right now. Obviously, people are still asking how the NCAA can make matches fair if California is gaining this huge advantage on other states. This tweet, which was used before, is one of such people who thinks this way. They target California schools and Fresno, and he even talks about what would happen if the bill came into play, which isn't even due until 2023. In his and many other eyes, they believe that the bill would only ruin competition between states. Although this is a valid claim, there's already a lot of varying rules within the NCAA based on states, so it wouldn't make too big of a difference. Besides that, the California bill is actually already influencing many other states to follow, and legislations are starting to talk about similar bills. This editorial quote states that SB 206 will definitely lead other states in similar proposals, which is actually already happening. Since this can soon become a nationwide law, there won't be any complaints about unfairness because every state will be using it. Hopefully someday, this bill can be nationally recognized and college athletes can finally get the recognition and rights that they deserve, because the NCAA shouldn't be able to control a college student's personal life.